Just a few days ago, a member of Congress of this body, Ilhan Omar, shared a video on her social media account about Charlie Kirk's murder, and I'll quote what it said. It said, "Charlie Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster shot him through the neck." In other words, Charlie had it coming to him. The words that he said naturally led to his assassination. I mean, that is a reprehensible thing for a member of Congress to say, to suggest, to promote in any capacity. And there are people across this country who are losing their jobs for far less than this. In your opinion, does the FBI recognize the rising threat of political violence in America, and what can you guys do to address it?
Yes, we do, and what we can do to address it, Congressman, is...
Wow. Congressman Brandon Gill just called out the rot within the left, and he did it with cold, hard facts. Think about this. A sitting member of Congress, Ilhan Omar, actually amplified a post basically cheering on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. That's not politics. That's dangerous. And Gill wasn't afraid to say it plainly. Political violence is wrong, period. This video needs to be seen by more people. If you believe leaders should be held accountable for promoting violence, make sure to hit that subscribe button, tap the bell, and drop a comment on where you stand on this.
Director Patel, do you agree that we have a problem in the United States with politically motivated violence?
Absolutely.
And I very much agree. I think we can all agree that political violence is wrong, it's evil, regardless of which side it comes from, and that we can all adamantly and vehemently reject it, or we certainly should. But one of the things that we've noticed recently is that affinity and tolerance for political violence is not equally distributed on both sides of the aisle. In fact, right now, social media is filled with leftists who are cheering on the murder of an iconic conservative political figure, Charlie Kirk. And it's not just random people on Twitter doing this now. There's a YouGov poll released just a few days ago, which stated that 25% of those who identify as very liberal believe that political violence can sometimes be justified. That's far too many, is it not? It is.
One is far too many.
One is far too many. That's right. Only 3% of very conservatives said the same thing, and we can agree that 3% is far too many. But there's an astounding difference between 25% on the left accepting and tolerating political violence and 3% on the right. I would hope that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle would also recognize that there is a systemic problem on their side of the aisle with tolerance for violence against people with whom they politically disagree, that there is a cultural rot on their side of the aisle that needs to be addressed desperately. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
One of the more astounding aspects of this is that it's not just people. This comes from the very top, from their political leaders. Just a few days ago, a member of Congress of this body, Ilhan Omar, shared a video on her social media account about Charlie Kirk's murder, and I'll quote what it said. It said, "Charlie Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster shot him through the neck." In other words, Charlie had it coming to him. The words that he said naturally led to his assassination. I mean, that is a reprehensible thing for a member of Congress to say, to suggest, to promote in any capacity. And there are people across this country who are losing their jobs for far less than this. And that, by the way, is a just response to acceptance and tolerance of political violence. It's amazing to me that the political left today, who were the originators and the cheerleaders of cancel culture, now have the backbone to attack conservatives for defending their assassinated friend. But there's a key difference here. Democrats want to silence conservatives for speaking obvious, self-evident, ontological truths like that men aren't women and men can't get pregnant. That seems pretty basic. That seems like a basic truth that we should all be able to agree on. Republicans, by contrast, are recognizing that a constitutional republic depends on the free and open exchange of ideas that we can debate without violence. and that assassinating a political rival is evil, it's wrong, and it should not be glorified or promoted or justified in any way, including in the way that Congresswoman Ilhan Omar did. So Mr. Patel, thank you again for being here. I'd like to, with the remainder of my time, just get your opinion. Does the FBI recognize the rising threat of political violence in America, and what can you guys do to address it?
Yes, we do, and what we can do to address it, Congressman, is we need to get online partnerships with these companies in the public space, on these gaming sites, and on these social media sites. As I was saying earlier, there is no way to triage the amount of information generated on these sites by the FBI alone. And we need the public-private partnership. And there's another law that's expiring, I think, at the end of this month, which I believe we need renewed, that allows private sector companies to report into the FBI without liability for criminal investigatory purposes. And that's the kind of stuff we need to keep going.
All right, let's break this down. What we just heard from Congressman Gill is more than just political theater. It's a defense of something that should be common sense. In America, we do not excuse violence, and we definitely don't glorify it. He started by laying the foundation with data, not just emotion. A recent poll showed 25% of those identifying as very liberal believe political violence can sometimes be justified. Compare that to only 3% of conservatives. That gap is staggering. And Gill's point was clear. 1% is already too many. But when you've got a quarter of one side openly rationalizing violence, that's a cultural problem that cannot be ignored. Then he went further, and this is where the clip really hit me. He exposed the hypocrisy of Ilhan Omar. She shared a post that essentially said Charlie Kirk deserved to be shot, framing it as if his words somehow justified his murder. Let that sink in. A sitting U.S. Congresswoman promoted that narrative, and Gill called it what it is, reprehensible. Because if anyone else in any other profession did something remotely similar, they'd be fired in an instant. And here's the kicker, the left loves cancel culture. They'll try to destroy conservatives for simply stating basic truths like men aren't women or men can't get pregnant. Yet when one of their own spreads something that glorifies political assassination, silence, excuses, deflection, that's the hypocrisy Gill shredded in this exchange. What makes Gill's stance powerful is that he reminded everyone what's at stake. The survival of a constitutional republic depends on free speech, on open debate, on the rejection of violence. If we normalize leaders excusing violence against their opponents, we aren't just playing with fire, we're setting the whole house on fire. And you could tell Director Patel agreed. Political violence is a rising threat, and the FBI alone can't manage it. They need partnerships with social platforms, they need laws renewed to let companies report threats, and they need a culture that doesn't cheer when someone is killed. Gill's questioning wasn't just about Omar. It was about fixing a national sickness before it grows. At the end of the day, this wasn't just Brandon Gill defending Charlie Kirk. This was him defending the principle that politics in America should never be settled with violence. That's leadership. That's courage. And that's the kind of voice we need more of in Congress. Backhand index pointing right, if you ask me. Gill didn't just blast Omar. He exposed a dangerous double standard and reminded us all of the basics. Debate your opponents, don't destroy them. What do you think? Should Omar be held accountable for this? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and don't forget to subscribe because this conversation is just getting started.